Hey folks, Chris here. I'm going to do a quick vlog entry tonight. I want to talk about sort of another day in the life of living in an RV, full-time, on the streets or elsewhere. So I had an interesting experience yesterday morning. I had a knock at the door in the morning, and there was a cop. This is sort of the dreaded experience that you might have. I'm in St. George right now, kind of getting ready to head out to some other areas, and I have already found a couple of other spots to park, and I know you're not supposed to stay in one spot for very long. I had only been in this one spot for a day. I had just moved from another place, and I was in kind of an area that I wasn't in anyone's way, or there were no street signs, none of the indicators of, clearly you shouldn't be parking in a place. And it was a cop on a bike type of thing, and she was just patrolling around, I guess, and saw the RV and my scooter off the back, and so knocked on the door. I opened the door, and I had just actually gotten up. I threw my hat on, and she said, "Hey, I just want to make sure that this isn't an abandoned RV." And I said, "No, it's not." I said, "It's mine." And she had already looked up the registration. I have active registration and insurance and all of that. And she goes, "I just want to let you know, just so you kind of know the rules here in St. George." And by the way, she was very pleasant. She was very nice, but she was still professional. And she said, a while back, some rules were changed in St. George, which made it legal to live in your vehicle. So she says, if you're doing that, that's totally cool. She says, just know that the primary sort of condition is that you just have to move every 48 hours. And I said, that's great information to have. Thank you. So she said, we look to make sure that if there is a vehicle on the street, that it's not something that's been abandoned. She used the word cobwebs. So we look for cobwebs. She kind of laughed. And she said, clearly your vehicle's in well-maintained shape for its age. And I said, yeah, I try and take very good care of it. And she said, okay, that's very cool. And I said, I'm actually probably going to be moving today. And I told her, I said, I've only been here for a day. And she said, okay, that's very cool. She said, are you just in town for a while? And I said, yeah, I've been down in Arizona for a while, and I'm just sort of moving north, and so I'm here for the week or so. She said, okay, that's cool. And so it was actually just kind of a very pleasant interchange. And I suppose in some parts of the country it could be very scary. But it dawned on me that they probably made that change because down in Southern California a number of years ago, people living in their vehicles on the streets used to get harassed by the cops a lot, and in some pretty aggressive ways apparently. And it was illegal to live in your vehicle, and they would arrest people, and it was pretty bad from what I understand. So people challenged the city and took them to court, and it made it all the way to one of the Circuit Court of Appeals that governs a broad region of the western United States. And the ruling was that, hey, you can't just go in and arrest people for living in their vehicles. Living in your vehicle isn't an indication of anything illegal. It's just living in your vehicle. And so they basically struck down any statutes that said it's illegal to live in your vehicle. So apparently LA had to make a whole bunch of changes to their city codes, and I assume, and so kind of logical things like don't park right next to a school. They want you to be a certain distance from a school, apparently, and you have to obey certain street signs. I mean, if it says no parking and there's big red right there, you obviously can't park. But I assume that change that was made here in St. George was probably a reflection of that ruling, like they're aware of that ruling, that making a statute that it's illegal to live in your vehicle just wouldn't pass muster, and they could be challenged on that. But the whole point here is that it was a pleasant interchange with the cop, and she was very respectful, and I was very respectful back to her. So that was interesting. But I kind of wanted to talk about that because that's just something that you might run into. The other thing, right after that, I had already planned to take my RV down to an RV place and dump my tanks. And there is an awesome RV dealership here in town. There are a handful. It's a kind of a snowbird area. There are 3 or 4 RV dealerships that I know of. But one of them has a free dump station and potable water. And I've used it before, and every time I've gone in there, I've also bought propane from them, and I've bought a few other things from them. It's a good dealership. And they have very good propane rates too, which was nice. So I went in, I dumped my tanks, and filled up my fresh water. And while I was there, when I was paying for propane, I started chatting with the customer who was there. Actually, he asked me about my rig. He noticed on my rig that I had solar panels, and he asked me about that. He said, "Did you have them do that here?" And I said, "No, I had it done in the Salt Lake area." But I said I had it done by some technicians that were from a place like this, in another dealership like this. And he says, "Oh, okay, cool." And I said, "But what I did was I researched it, I bought the components, and I brought everything in and then had them install it." And he said, "Oh, that's really cool." He says, "I'm thinking about getting that for my rig." And he says, "My rig is only like 2 weeks old." And he says, "We were traveling through town, and on my brand new rig," I think they have a brand new RV, brand new, like not even used, like brand new off the lot. He said, "My fresh water tank fell out when we were driving." And I've heard horror stories of quality control problems on newer vehicles, and that one kind of takes the cake, to just have the water tank just fall out. And so one of the technicians that works there, that was actually working with him on the warranty issues and stuff, came over, and we all three started talking, and we were talking about the solar thing, and he says, "Oh yeah, we just actually installed a solar setup, a 3.5 kilowatt solar setup on a massive Class A for somebody." And I was like, "Wow, that is crazy." And he says, "The funny thing is we had to massively beef up the battery, because that rig only came with 2 6-volt house batteries." And I just thought, wow, somebody's going to pay like $150, $160, easily $1,000 for a new Class A, and they have 2 measly 6-volt house batteries. But he said, yeah, so he says, "I'm kind of thinking about the solar thing, but in the meantime, I'm here to get my rig fixed." And yeah, it was kind of a funny and interesting conversation. So I just kind of wanted to pass that along. It's just sort of a day in the life of living in your RV, funny things that happen. So I'm actually hoping, not tomorrow, but on Tuesday, to drive out of here, and I'm going to head down into Arizona again. And on my way, I'm going to do some exploring of the Grand Canyon, because the Grand Canyon is all right down along the area that I'm going to be traveling. Well, dang, I wanted to travel today, but it looks like it's going to be windy down in the area that I'm going to, and then tomorrow it's supposed to be raining. I really wanted to get out of St. George. Wind. Oh, I do not want to drive in the wind. 20 to 30 miles an hour gusts. Oh, dang, and tomorrow's supposed to be raining, so it looks like I might not be able to get going until Wednesday.